There's so many great mentors out there that share their work, and I learn from those, the wins and the misses, and that's how we become better dentists, because we can't always just take time away from our family and kids and work and come to see events all the time. So a lot of this learning is happening on these online forums with these communities. We treat the patient, we don't treat the insurance company, we don't treat their financial history, we treat the patient. Hygienists as a group, guys, you have a very powerful position in that dental offices cannot run well, efficiently, and incredibly productively without like 2 to 3 hygienists per doctor. And so I think it's important to work together and make it harmonious for all. But you guys are an incredibly valuable part of a dental practice team.
Get ready for your unofficial dental hygiene podcast. These are the tales of 2 hygienists, one East Coast RDH and one West Coast hygienist. Listen as they tackle the profession of dental hygiene with humor and enthusiasm. Now, please join Michelle Strange and Andrew Johnston as they tell you a tale of 2 hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of 2 Hygienists, episode number 320. I am your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you for listening wherever you might be. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button and let your friends know if you hear something that you like or something that makes you think just a little bit. And I know that we always say that, but I would consider it a great favor if you'd please go and hit that subscribe button. So today I am flying, I'm recording this early, but like as you're listening to it, if you're listening to it on Wednesday, which is the day that I plan on flying into Chicago Midwinter Dental Meeting. So I'll be here for the meeting. And so if you're here, I would love to meet up with you. Also, if you know of any event that's happening, make sure you send it our way so that we can try and meet up. I know that we have lots of things already scheduled. I think we have a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday meeting or event in the evenings. But there's always room for one more, right? I feel like a lot of these meetings or these events are only like an hour, maybe 2 hours. You can drop in and drop out. So if you're there, drop me a line and let's hang out. I love Chicago. I think I've said this before on the podcast. Chicago is one of my favorite cities of the whole world. I'm really excited because one thing that we're doing is we have a pizza tour on Sunday. I mentioned this before that my buddy Daniel is coming to town and we're going to spend a couple extra days in Chicago. And I think some of our friends are going to come hang out also on Sunday. But there's essentially what this pizza tour is. My wife and I discovered this several years ago. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be a tour of pizza places. And I think there's about 4 places that they go to, and they do every type of pizza that you can think of. They do the Neapolitano, the deep dish, the thin crust, the wood oven. I mean, they do all sorts of different things. So the cool part is that they also talk about the history of the city and each restaurant. And there's different versions too. So if you are into, say, like the mob scene, like Al Capone, they have a version of the tour just for you. I'm pretty sure that the URL is chicagopizzatours.com, but you can also just Google it and it'll probably be like the first thing that's on the list. So if you're in Chicago, have time, and there's still some seats, I think that is something that you guys should definitely do. It's definitely worth it. So today on the show, we welcome Dr. Mona Patel. And we met up with her at the Voices of Dentistry conference where she was one of the speakers. And she was speaking on implant dentistry, digital workflows, and really trying to help the teams be successful. And she was so inspiring and so dynamic that when we were introduced, I just knew that we had to start recording right there. And I'm very thankful that she said yes to such an impromptu discussion. But her message will resonate with most of us, I think, because as hygienists, we're always really trying to find that doctor that takes care of their staff, that looks out for our best interests, that is also aligned with our interests. So, patient care is always going to be, top of mind for us. And we're really looking for doctors that are going to see it the same way that we see it. A fun fact, and I didn't realize this until way after we recorded, but a friend of our show and hygienist extraordinaire, Mandy, actually worked for Dr. Patel for some time. And Mandy was nominated by her for some award at Dent Supply Sirona meeting a few years back. And that's actually where we all first met the first time. I actually had kind of forgot that I had met her once before, but don't tell her. It's fine. So I had just forgotten about it. And then Mandy had posted something and tagged Dr. Patel. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so dumb. I can't believe I didn't put 2 and 2 together. But it makes a lot of sense now because Mandy was talking about how great Dr. Patel was even years ago. So next week we're going to circle back actually for part 2 of the roundtable with Kelly and Tina. And we're going to answer some more Facebook questions about local anesthesia, pediatrics. So make sure you come back for that episode. We're going to do this one segment. I've mentioned it now 2 weeks in a row. There's a segment that I wanted to start, and it's basically This Week in Social Media, and the feedback has been generally positive. So let's try it again, and we'll see how we like it. So I wanted to talk this week about a post that's been going around about Savannah Guthrie's visit to the dentist. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, essentially the backstory is that Savannah, who is one of the main co-anchors on the Today Show, recently had a trip to the dentist, and she really didn't have a great experience. She posted a picture with her bib on, and the caption read, "Is there a class in dental school where they teach them to make you feel guilty about how long it has been since your last visit, or how long you floss or don't floss, or how you should have had braces?" And then she also posted a picture of her radiographs, and the caption read, "It always starts with, quote, long time no see, and spirals from there." And so these posts, I mean, they kind of suck, don't they? Here we are trying to do our best as the best that we're taught, either in school or even a little bit afterwards. And we're taught to educate. And we educate about all these aspects that she said that, we're talking about. But the public perceives us as a dressing down. And so what can we do about that? And of course, I have some thoughts of my own, and I'm not here to, preach and lecture about, what we should be doing for every second of every appointment. And this podcast is really meant to try and be as interactive as possible. So if you guys have any comments, make sure you guys go to our social media post about this, and also email me, andrew@atale2hygienist.com, and let me know what kind of things that you think we could be doing better for the profession, better for the public, for the advocacy, and also for patient education, because I feel like that's really kind of where we've messed up probably in this particular situation. I will say this, though, that we do need to do better. And maybe we need to take some human interaction courses so that we can better understand how to present a message thoughtfully while also getting the outcomes that we want. And another quick note, of course, last week, if you go back to that episode with Dr. Matt Allen, you can see what he says on that episode or his previous episodes about motivational interviewing and how we can incorporate that into our patient care. The hygienist in me, of course, it didn't take me but a second, by the way, to zoom in on the radiographs that she posted and look at the work that's been done. Because when she says like, "Oh my gosh, it's always been so long," and they tell me how I'm not doing a good job, of course I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be a train wreck with like all implants everywhere. But I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised. She didn't really have all that extensive of work. I saw a few composites. I think she had endo and a crown maybe on number 15, maybe a DO on 14. I think there was like an occlusal and OL on 19, 18. I can't remember which one it was now. It's been a little bit since I've looked at that picture. But, it really wasn't that bad. And so I'm also kind of wondering, was she using this, using us as a profession, knowing that the public's perception of us is generally not that great, to get more likes or more comments, gain more attention to herself? And, dentistry has been a punching bag for so long that this was just kind of one of those things that she did, even though it was probably in pretty good condition with her teeth and her gums. So, that's always kind of also in the back of my brain. So that was This Week in Social Media. If you have something that you want me to talk about or you want to have addressed on this segment, let me know. I'll be trying to do it for the intro for the next several episodes. So continue to see how that goes. But that's all I have for you this week. So on that note, let's get into the interview with Dr. Mona Patel.
Dental world, the one place where you have any fame at all, it is in the dental world, and it's humbling when I come to these places, because I'm happy to I'd love people to recreate what I've done, because I love learning from what other people have done too, and then try to recreate it in my own office. So very sweet of you to say that.
By the way, that mentality of like, I want someone to recreate what I've done is because a lot of people, especially speakers, and Dr. Standers did this right after you spoke. He's like, "Hey, contact me.
Yes.
I'll give you everything."
Yep.
Like, I don't care. This isn't like your career path, I feel, is very centered on patients, right?
Yep.
That quote at the end, it's about the patients and the care that they're receiving. And if people are copying you and then sharing that and taking credit, so to speak, and all it is helping more patients.
Rising tides raises all ships, right?
Yeah.
And then when I was saying, when we were talking earlier, we live in such a world of abundance. There's enough dentistry, there's enough implants, there's enough hygiene to go around. And if there's 10 dentists in one strip mall, everybody can do something to differentiate themselves a little bit. Yeah. But really the ultimate goal of all of us with this degree that we took an oath for was to take care of our patients the best we can. Yeah. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel 10 times. If there's something that's in digital dentistry that's working well in my office, I'm happy to teach it. And I come to places like this to learn what's working well in my colleagues' offices so I can go implement that in mine. So it's that mindset really makes, I think, any office successful.
Yeah.
And it's not about competition. It's about, differentiating your own brand in your own way, but you use the same core values that most digital dentists are doing. So
listeners, you're jumping in a conversation, by the way, because I forgot to introduce this. Dr. Mona Patel is with us, and she's our guest. I'm also guest co-hosted by Amber.
Hola.
Hi. Hola. Hi, Amber.
I feel like we're just going to be like an Amber, and you're like, hola, and everyone's like, I know who she is.
I know who she is. I know who
everyone. So
when I say hola, everybody knows. I'm the Latina RDH.
Also, when you only have to introduce yourself by your first name, you've made it big. You're famous.
She's actually really famous. I don't think everyone doesn't know.
Everyone knows Amber RDH.
Yeah. So
they're going to think I'm a different Amber now.
Yeah.
It's like,
who I also
which
love.
of the many of them?
There's plenty of
Amber.
Ambers. No, that's why I'm the Latina RDH.
The Latina RDH.
Yes.
There you go.
Which is also another thing. I don't really want to get into this on this particular episode because I have so many things I want to ask you about, and we have not enough time. But this whole naming of things is something we should have on a podcast soon.
Yeah.
So there's this really famous person, Andy RDH, that is not me, Andrew Johnston. Completely different. But I go to a conference I know you, Andy RDH. I'm like, we don't even look the same. Not even close.
That's why you have to differentiate yourself, and then they know that you're Andrew Johnson RDH.
I'm okay. You know what? We're a Tale 2 Hygienist podcast, and that's good enough for me.
Yep.
I want to talk about your history a little bit, because in your presentation earlier, you talked a little bit, one of the slides was talking about implants and how this is relatively newer for you and the progress that has come about it. But do you mind giving our audience just a little bit of peek behind the curtain, who you are, school, how long you've been practicing all that?
I'll give you the 2-minute elevator pitch, because I don't think it's always as interesting to know what I did 15 years ago. But I graduated from Michigan and went to UIC in Chicago for dental school, and then moved to Milwaukee, and I went up there with my husband with the intention we're starting a family and his career, and I started working with a DSO, because I was content at that time to be a corporate dentist, because my priorities were to start my family and just, happen to be a dentist second. And after a few years of doing that, it was very clear to me that I just wasn't fulfilled professionally. And so I bought my own practice in 2013, and we built out the whole new digital facility in 2016. And that's when I feel like I really came alive as a dentist, because I had a blank slate to design my core values and missions for our practice philosophy. And a lot of that was, we talk about team training, engaging my hygiene team and stuff. And so that is, basically the core of who I am. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a dentist, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend. I try to wear many hats because I'm lucky to have such great relationships in my life. But the past 3 or 4 years especially have been incredibly professionally inspired by my colleagues across the country. And one of the big things that was missing in my practice was me placing my own implants. And that's what launched that journey. And now it's, my favorite procedure to do. It's so predictable to me compared to some of the other restorative dentistry that we do.
Yeah.
I like working with titanium more than I do, a soft root surface. So, but it's such a lifelong journey for us. But I couldn't do it without my team. I tell you, I have the best team at my office.
Love that.
I feel like that pathway is similar to so many dentist, hygienist assistants of, we get into this profession, we do our thing, and it's not like it's not fulfilling, but there's something missing, right? So what was it that triggered, hey, there's this digital workflow that's been missing out of my life? Who were you watching, who were you listening to at the time that brought that onto your radar?
So we were, building out my new office, and so Patterson Dental was integral in building my office with me, but I was involved with CEREC doctors, Spear, the whole CEREC community was what really opened my eyes to these digital workflows. And too often we go to CE events, or we go learn about something, and then we come back Monday morning, and we're just stuck trying to implement it into our own practices. So the culture of this Spear, CEREC doctors is this like-minded growth and always be learning mentality of where we go train on something, but then when you come back, you need to engage the team. And that's, that's just day one of your training with your team and getting everybody on board, because any new scope that we introduce into the office or a new practice workflow or philosophy, unless everybody's on board, unless everybody understands the importance of their role in making that workflow successful, it's going to fail. And then we just get disgruntled, and we invested all this money into this either new laser or learning implants or whatever it is. So those were a huge inspiration, points for me, was learning all that from the CEREC community for building the digital office.
Do you mind just kind of giving, because I feel like a lot of hygienists, if you're not on Dental Town from way back then or like whatever, like CEREC Docs is like if you're a CEREC Doc, like you're in a community, like you're really like a part of it. Do you mind explaining a little bit about CEREC Docs to our audience?
Sure. Like CDOCS is basically like the Peloton of dentistry. Like you're connected by every on an app, and you cheer each other on. You have friends that follow each other and things like that. Because, like I said, we don't have to learn it all on our own or figure it out on our own. And the more we teach peer-to-peer, teaching each other real patient scenarios, and the CEREC Doctors community online, the forums, and Keep CERECing on Facebook, run by Mona Patel. Like these forums are fantastic, and T-Bone with 3D dentists, and there's so many great mentors out there that share their work, and I learn from those, the wins and the misses, and that's how we become better dentists, because we can't always just take time away from our family and kids and work and come to see events all the time. So a lot of this learning is happening on these online forums with these communities. So CDOCS is based originally out of Scottsdale, but now they're in Charlotte as well, and you can learn from your phone on when you're at home on these forums. So
and SPEAR is an education group based out of Scottsdale.
Exactly. So
now.
SPEAR is right here in Scottsdale too, and it also is an educational platform for learning, not just online, but in person too, and everything from like practice solutions for running the business of your office, but the clinical content is huge too. So you can join that SPEAR community and look at videos online from parameters for your hygiene team or learning ortho, things like that, and come to the live classes. So I say this all the time in dental. Just the day that we get our degree doesn't mean that you're an expert in your field. We have to be learning every single day. Like it's our field is evolving with the new technology, new materials, new workflows. So it's important that we are so plugged into these communities. So I'm very involved with CDOCS, with SPEAR, implant pathways, 3D. There's enough to go around for everybody, and there's a lot to learn. So I think I've learned more in the past 5 years of my career than I have as a new grad.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that crazy? But it's fun. You get to a point where, when we're trying to work smarter, not harder. I think the first part in your career is maybe you're working for more money. And then maybe in the middle part of your career, you're working for more time. And then towards the end, you're working for more fulfillment. So I'm at the point now where I'm seeking more time. And that's where I'm trying to work smarter. So I'm trying to tighten up my workflows, engage my team a little bit. We were chatting about this a few minutes earlier, is that my team is great about co-diagnosing with me, my hygiene team. So we come in because then that makes me a little bit more available to other patients. And so we can work more efficiently. And so just picking up some of those tips are really important. And that's where I'm at in life. But, some people are working hard in their practices because they need to pay their student loans. Yeah. And that's usually the first 5 to 10 years of somebody's career.
And you can't fault them for that. It's a big deal.
I was sitting on a whole house mortgage of student loans that needed to get paid down. So that's where that hustle comes from. But right now I'm wanting more time to be able to do all the other things in life that I want to do.
Doctor, it's really evident just from just listening to you speak about your team. Every time you say even your team, like you light up. Like you love your team so much.
I do. They're my family. I mean, I value them so much. To have 14 people that trust you to guide them to wear your brand on their scrubs, and they work. I don't take it lightly that the decisions I make in the practice every day affect their paychecks to go feed their families. Sure. And it's really important to me that they feel part of that decision-making process with the practice, because it's not just me. The brand is not just me. The brand is the whole patient experience. When the patient walks in the door, and the way that our front office team has greeted them and verified their insurance and things like that, to meeting our hygienists. Our patients spend more time with our hygiene team than they do with me most of the time. So they build those relationships. I love it when a patient says, I come to Bayshore Dental for my hygienist, Tina, or Michael, or Mandy. That's why.
Wait, Michael, you have a hygienist?
I have a hygienist.
Congrats, you're so progressive.
Yes, I have a hygienist, and he's fantastic. And it's Michael,
So, Doctor, how do you, so obviously you love your team, awesome, fantastic. But how do you get them to engage in the vision of your practice? Like, you are not someone who wants to accept the status quo. You want to keep progressing. How do you get your hygienist team to do
Well,
that?
it starts with who you hire on in the first place. You know, you hire for attitude. You can always train for skill.
Sure.
So,
Agreed.
yeah, right? So,
Yes.
so how do you, so first it's having those conversations in the beginning, like, and being very transparent. Like, this is my brand. This is my core values. These are the top 10 things that are really important to us here at Bayshore Dental with patient experience. Is that something that you believe in? Then, yeah, if that's yes, then come on board. I can train you how to use a laser. I can train you how to use EagleSoft, right? So I think too often people look at your skill set coming in for a job position as technical skills, and we can work on those. I mean, I'm always learning my own technical skills and furthering that. We should expect that same with our hygiene team. So that's step one. And then step two is just empowering our team. Like, I empower my hygienist to say, you're not a support staff. You're a clinical provider in this practice.
Yes.
You're a clinical provider. That is, you know what that means is you're providing a healthcare service to our patients that is no different than the healthcare service I provide. Mine just, is a little different scope of service because of my degree. But, scaling, root planing, sealants, all of those are dental services.
Like snap for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. When you empower your team to think that, like, these are your patients, I'm not just coming in and taking over, I'm coming in to just confirm some of your diagnoses. So when you empower your team members to form those relationships with their patients, it just falls into place.
Yeah.
I tell you, then they drink the Kool-Aid and they get it.
They do. We
get
love it.
Yeah.
We love it.
Because I think also while we are, correct me if I'm wrong, Amber.
Okay.
As a hygienist, I think we're very strong-willed individuals.
Yeah.
However, I would also say that we want a leader.
Yeah.
And we want a leader that would share our values, right? And who's doing the right things for the patients. So it's kind of a unicorn situation, it feels like sometimes, to be able to find that perfect office for us.
It is. I equate, and I talk to people in medicine, I equate to hygiene to like nurse practitioners for doctors. I mean, how many times I take my kids to the pediatrician and we're seeing the nurse practitioner and I don't even see the pediatrician for something. And you aren't hygienists are not, like I said, a support staff member that if you call in sick, the patient's still coming in and getting seen. But if you are their provider.
Yeah.
So if you're not there that day, they won't be seen unless they get moved to another provider, right?
Yeah.
So that part, I think when you empower your hygienist, like I said, to own that relationship and build that dental relationship with the patients, that's where they spread their wings. I mean, you guys are catching things that we may miss, right? If I look at bite wings, if I look at 100 bite wings in a row, I'm sure there's something that I'm overlooking. But it's so great to have that second set of eyes that catches those bite wings too, or the stories that you get before we walk in the room. This person just had surgery. This person just got married. This person has a history of bulimia. Then maybe a patient won't open up to me about that, but then that's a red flag for me to start looking at erosion on the enamel. So when you have a second set of eyes co-diagnosing, it's so much better for the patient. And I think hopefully more doctors are recognizing that their hygienists are not just there to clean teeth and do prophies, right?
Yeah.
Their hygienists are a second set of eyes for doing dental exams, oral cancer screenings, all of that.
So my assumption is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I feel like I'm wrong a lot on this podcast, but so coming from the DSO world, you are very familiar with KPIs, metrics, whatever the term is that you guys used. Did you bring that over to private practice? Do you still have metrics for your hygiene team?
Yes, absolutely. I think that when we talk about DSOs and we talk about metrics and KPIs and stuff, it gets such a bad rap because it's like you need to do 3 crowns a day. You need to do 4.2 SRP quads a day in order to be measured as a successful hygienist.
Right.
And that's the awful thinking. That is what gives it such a toxic mentality. So you pull that apart, but I do have goals. I have KPIs and we have metrics for our hygiene team. But for example, my hygiene team, when we meet with them, their metric is not you need to do 2 quads a day. So fill that void. Our metric is, hey, I would love to see 2 patients a day getting some sort of SRP or a quad of SRP. Let's all train together on ways to recognize the underdiagnosed perio in our practice.
Perfect.
So that's where it's at. It's not that you have to fill a number, but do we want to make sure that we're equipped with the right tools for training, recognition, insurance verification, diagnosing, all of that.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So now when they've been educated to do that, then those patients will automatically fill in.
Yeah.
I mean, perio is there in all of our practices. It's so underdiagnosed. So I mean, it's a convoluted answer, but you're not wrong in saying, like, DSOs, I think, get a bad rap because it's all numbers driven. Our goals are numbers driven, but they're absolutely trumped by only if the patient needs it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing, though, is like if you do a really good job of using the science and the evidence, using, for instance, the AAP, they have stats and numbers for what perio should look like in any given practice. And then you look at your practice and look at the demographics. Now, if you're going to be in a college town, it might be a little bit different than if you're in, like where I'm in Florida.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, all retirees
Yeah,
all
all
day long,
retired,
right?
yep.
So our numbers might be a little bit higher for perio
Sure.
percentage, but you could take that number in any practice and look to see if you're aligned.
Absolutely.
And just take a little bit of variance there. So,
Absolutely.
And then you can know if you're delivering the right amount of care to the patients. And
Absolutely.
we have a thing, we call it appropriate patient treatment. My last DSO, we had a similar thing, quality of care. And I think that if you align yourselves with both of those, like your hygiene teams love those things, those metrics. They love getting on board.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it's just get them to understand the why.
Absolutely.
Teach them.
I mean, if somebody told me you need to do 2 crowns a day, and that's what we're measuring if you're a successful dentist or not in this practice, I would be so turned off by that.
Yeah.
But if somebody came to me and said, we're going to teach you to recognize the variances of why we would recommend crowns on patients, cracked tooth syndrome, post-endo, a fractured cusp, things like that, and we're going to show you how to diagnose and recognize that, then that would be something I'd be much more driven
So I
to
think
do.
Absolutely.
That's where I think the conflict comes, right? Where we're just told, like, you need this, but not provided, like, the education
Nope.
behind, like, why we need to do these things.
Yeah.
And then we feel like we're just selling,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
I come from a public health background, somebody who didn't have access to dental care. And so then offering somebody something, like, really expensive was really, really hard for me.
Yeah.
But really now learning that people deserve choice, right? You don't just recommend extraction to every single patient just because you assume they can't afford. You give them what they need. Everybody deserves the equal type of care.
Yep.
And then they can make the decision on
Correct.
what they can or cannot do.
We treat the patient. We don't treat the insurance company. We don't treat their
Yes.
financial history. We treat the patient. And I think I do empathize with our hygienists kind of nationally, is because as dentists, a lot of us, we're trying to grow these digital practices. We want to do more and more scope of services, so we dump on our hygiene team a lot more to say, okay, I need you to do a full scan on every patient. I need you to take intro photos. We just kind of give the scut work to the hygiene team to do it, to prep this patient and hand us all this information on a platter, so then we can catapult it into things like implants, endo, ortho, stuff like that. So it is a lot of selling
Yeah.
to meet those metrics. And I can understand why then, hygienists as a whole get disgruntled.
But again, like, I think what helps is that don't tell me that we're looking for crowns. Tell me, like, why somebody needs the crown. Because in hygiene
Exactly.
school, like, we took, dental materials,
Yeah.
but not to the depth that you took dental materials, and, like, the need for diagnosing and restorations. Like, really explain to me why this patient needs it. Help me be invested in that patient and their disease so that I
100%.
feel empowered to then help them get through that disease.
100%. And that is what would be what every dentist would want as a dream hygienist with them, to help co-diagnose.
Yeah.
And that co-diagnosing only happens if the dentists are training the hygienists to start recognizing that. And so, when you're disgruntled and happy in that position because you're just doing prophies and SRPs all day long, you can't thrive. You can't work at the top of your degree, which is to recognize oral disease.
Yeah.
Then it can become a toxic place sometimes, a toxic work environment.
From a doctor standpoint, do you feel like sometimes, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without like offending any of the groups.
Good luck with that.
I don't want to say it's like it's not your job to teach a hygienist to do it, but like, is there an expectation that a hygienist that went to school should be able to do X, Y, and Z? Or is the mindset more of like what you're doing? Like, I have more learning to do.
Yeah, no, I think it's wrong to think that it's not any dentist's job to teach the hygienist. I think that's the wrong mindset. They're working under our degree. Any hygienist that comes in is working under that dentist degree in that office, whether it's a solo group or a solo practice or multiple providers there. But it is absolutely the dentist's job to set the core values of the practice, to the parameters, the goals, the metrics, and to coach that hygienist to provide that care. Yes, it's great if a new hygienist graduates with a nitrous oxide certification and knows how to use a laser and all of that. But if you don't, then it's a dentist's job to say, we would like to implement that in the practice. I'm going to invest in you to do that.
Yeah.
Love that. Invest in you.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, if you're graduating, you need to know SRP.
Yeah.
That's a foundational knowledge of your hygiene degree. But once you graduate with that hygiene degree, you could go work in a public health setting. You could go work in a hospital environment. You can work in a bougie North Shore practice, and it's all whitening that they do there. And so you do that. So you have to build on that. Our degrees are just a baseline of what we should know. It's just foundational knowledge.
Yes.
We have so much to build on that. And it's absolutely the dentist's responsibility to help coach that hygienist. But, the hygienist also needs to come meet us halfway, too,
100%.
and be willing to learn. And, if a patient cancels, you have an hour free. Go pick up a scanner and try to start practicing scanning them out, and just have some self-drive there.
Yeah, 100%. I
agree with that.
We talk a lot about on the show, whenever you finish your boards, the boards aren't there to say you are the best hygienist. The boards are testing for, quote, minimal competency.
Exactly.
That's literally what the terminology is in, I think, all the states. So I think that's what we try and do is come on, hygienists, do more. You guys got it.
Hygienists as a group, guys, you have a very powerful position in that dental offices cannot run well, efficiently, and incredibly productively without 2 to 3 hygienists per doctor.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to work together and make it harmonious for all. But you guys are an incredibly valuable part of a dental practice.
So, question right now with all the shortage of hygienists and so much negativity on social media about hygienists and not being able to recruit hygienists, any recommendations, suggestions, advice to dentists who are trying to retain their hygienists?
I wish I had advice on that because I would have it apply to mine. We spent a solid year looking to add to our hygiene team. And, and the dentists and the networks will say, is it cool to poach a hygienist from somewhere else? And, what are people resorting to get them? Listen, I focus on, I don't know what my hygiene team does outside of their work hours, right? And if they're looking at other jobs. All I know is that if I can provide a really good work environment for them where they feel valued, where they feel their voice is heard, I pay them very competitively. We do a lot of bonus incentives on production and goals met and things like that. If I can create that harmonious environment, then they won't be looking to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's our focus. Yeah, but there's a huge hygiene shortage.
What's that quote? People don't leave a job, they leave management.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah, people don't leave a job. They leave their manager. They leave their boss.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's where the focus is at right now. I mean, who knows? Tomorrow there's such a hygiene shortage for us. It's a great time to be a hygienist.
But I love what you said
it's
earlier.
A great time.
Yeah.
I love what you said earlier. I felt what you said by the burden that you carry as being, a practice owner, but also because you are now also providing for those families.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just that hygienist, but those families. And the fact that you know that and you feel that is, I think that says a lot.
It's important. One of the hardest things about COVID, 2 years ago, right when we had our shutdown, our practice was shut down for 8 weeks. And, it was really stressful. COVID was hard. Everybody. I don't doubt that everybody is stressed out from how this pandemic has affected them. But, gosh, my heart went out to healthcare providers, and my heart went out to small business owners. And guess what? Most dentists are small business owners who are healthcare providers. And so we kind of got the double whammy of how are we going to navigate this, viral pandemic with treating patients, but also how are we going to keep our business afloat? Yeah. And the business part, it weighed very heavy on me that I have 14 people that rely on this paycheck to take care of their families. And before the PPP loans and things like that were out, we didn't know. It was my first priority was I want to make sure my team is taken care of.
Did you furlough anybody?
Nope.
Wow.
I did not furlough a single. I would have
That's amazing.
I would sooner sell my car and make my husband drop me off to work every day than have to furlough my team because they joined me. And not to knock people that did need to furlough. It was one of my priorities was take care of your team. If I need to sell equipment or something, take a loan. We'll figure it out down the road. The money will always come back.
Yeah.
Love it. I had to furlough my staff. Yeah. That was one of the first things as a dental director. I was at my job. I started mid-February. Yeah. And then March shut down.
Yeah.
And
that's a rough one.
It's rough.
I had to furlough all but one person.
It was tough, right?
One of the hardest things I've ever had to do.
It's tough.
It makes me want to cry. It was so hard.
It's tough. And I was fortunate in that I had a few that voluntarily took, took unemployment, took a leave of absence, things like that, because they did not want to come and work in a clinical environment where you're shut down, because we were still open to see emergencies and things like that, but I wasn't running a full office. So you go all of a sudden to 5% of your production that you normally make, but that 5% went straight towards trying to keep everybody on board at a baseline. But there were some sacrifices made. We didn't do raises. There's no bonuses.
Sure.
The year of COVID, things like that. I mean, there were definitely sacrifices, and we had no growth goals set or met. But the bottom line is that everyone was able to keep their job and keep a steady salary coming in every 2 weeks. So that was a big
awesome.
win. Yeah.
I'm sure your staff appreciated that.
I'm sure.
I hope so. They gave me their all, so I tried to give them my all.
Doctor, I have two more thoughts for you,
Yes.
and then I promise we won't take any more of your
You're
time.
fine.
In your lecture earlier, you talked about learning from failures. Do you mind speaking a little bit more about that?
I think this applies to not just dental offices. I think it applies to everything in life. We live in such a world of social media where we put our best foot forward, and it's touting like how filtered we are, physically in our pictures, and how everything is rosy, and that's great in certain applications. But I think that we learn more from the missteps, the failures, and the humbleness that comes with that. I could do 20 implants in a row and they go great, and I'll learn a little something from each one, maybe a little tidbit. But I have one that fails, and I'll learn more from that of how to prevent that from happening again than those 20 combined, because we want things to be successful. People trust us to take care of them, their health. We don't want to give them a fail. So I think in general, dental, life, everything, our failures teach us more than our successes, because successes are built on the foundational knowledge that you know already.
Right.
Failures are the unknowns, right?
Yeah.
You don't go walk into a patient saying, I'm going to fail on this SRP today.
But I'm going to use you as a learning
I'm gonna use
experience.
it as a
Don't you
learning
worry.
experience. But hey, if you learn something from any dental failure or misstep, if you learn something from that, then you can turn that failure into something that's productive.
For sure. All right, last one, Doctor. So, we talked earlier about like the increase that you've had over the last several years in implant cases. I wanted to go back and just talk a little bit more about the team's role and what your expectations were going into it, and then what do you have them now doing to take? Was it scanning? What are they doing for you to get the increase in production?
Yep. So there's a concept of thinking of we are the most efficient, productive when everyone's working at the highest level of their license or the highest level of their degree, right? So if you have a dentist placing sealants, then it's just not making us as productive than if that dentist is placing an implant.
Yep.
If you have a hygienist doing a prophy, that's fantastic because that's a needed service. But if that hygienist is placing sealants or doing an SRP, that hygienist is working at the top of their license then. So the goal is always to get everybody to working at the top of their licensure, the top of their degree, and then that's when you're going to have the most financially productive office. And running the business of dentistry, we have to think about that. So what I try to do is empower my team to say, what do you love to do in this office? Because you're going to be really good at things you love to do versus the things that you do not love to do.
Yeah.
And what are you good at? What do you love to do? And what can you do in the parameters of your job? And so one of the big things is now is I have my team scanning for me because I physically cannot be in all the rooms that I want to scan patients on.
Right.
And that's not me working at the most productive of my licensure. I need to evaluate those scans and then design guides or design ortho. But we have integrated now. We're trying to get my hygiene team for new patients. If there's any semblance of them talking about wanting to do ortho, sleep apnea concerns, implants, anything like that, they'll grab our prime scan and scan their full mouth up in the chair right there.
Quick side question:
Yeah.
How long should it take for a scan?
Well, I run a tight ship with that. I come from the cloth of CDOCS and stuff. So I think in under 2.5 minutes you can scan the full mouth.
That's ambitious.
But it's very.
My face just like
I
fell.
see it, but okay.
Doctor.
How about even if it takes 4 or 5 minutes? I think that's successful. But if you have proper isolation and you have retraction, if you have an isolite or a second assistant coming and hopping and helping, if you have good retraction and with a prime scan with an updated scanner, it's so fast. It's a skill of getting that. You can absolutely get there. And patients expect us to be really good at this.
I know.
But if it's taking you 8-10 minutes to scan a full mouth, then it just needs probably some tweaks on the workflow that you're doing it in.
I just coached my hygienist, like, look, eventually you'll get to 6, and it'll be great.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now I've disappointed you, doctor. I'm so sorry.
Not at all. But again, we set very high expectations.
But that's how it should be.
Exactly, because I'm always thinking the patient and patient in mind.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in my family practice doctor's chair, or my eye doctor's chair, things like that, I want them to be working as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To minimize our time.
And the hygienists want to be the best. And so if they know that, hey, our standard is 2.5 minutes, what everyone else in the world's doing 4.
Yeah, there you go.
We got some class. Like, it's just a little bit of bragging rights.
Yeah.
And
as
the
long
way
as
to
I'm
get
getting
them
training,
to, yeah,
right?
exactly.
Sure.
I was just
Not
going to
just
say
like,
the way
hey,
to get them to
scan.
2.5 minutes is
Yeah.
to say, what can I do to help you get to 2.5 minutes? Oh, you need an hour carved out in your day to just practice scanning team members? Let's do it. You want to go to a course? Let's do it.
Yeah.
Like what can we do to help you be the best version of yourself with scanning? Then it's in the doctor's hands to do that, to provide that.
Okay,
love
then I
that
love
you
that.
said that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Doctor, if someone
you.
wanted to reach out to you and follow you, we'll see you speak.
Well, this is like the millennial in me coming out. And I realized I'm dating myself when I was like, oh, just call myself. No, you can follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. Mona Patel DDS
I love
is
it.
on Instagram. DM me. I will get back to you in either 3 minutes or in 3 weeks. So one or the other. It depends
Glad
on
you
what
said
I'm
or
doing.
3 weeks.
Yeah,
I
or
was
3
like,
weeks. It's like
Doctor,
you'll
go
hear from
scan
me.
a patient then.
No. You'll
Dang.
hear me in 3. You'll hear back from me in 3 minutes or in 3 weeks. But Mona Patel DDS, and my practice is Bayshore Dental in Milwaukee. So our website is bayshoredds.com. And you can reach me through all those avenues on social media. And I just, I'm available anytime if you want to reach out, have questions. I'm really, really passionate about collaborating dentists and hygienists together to make efficient workflows. And, we cannot do what we want to do without all of you hygienists supporting that and helping. And anything we can do to put you guys on more of a pedestal, I value you and we bow down to you because you guys do take a lot of the scut work out of the practice for us. So
Thank you for saying that,
I
Doctor.
appreciate it. So you guys keep up the great work and thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, thank you.